Do you think the deal is a good deal for Norwegian taxpayers? There's some rapid translation that's going on here.
Okay, just to add to what President Jagdeo said, it's correct that it's been established now in the MOU a reference level of 0.45%. That is derived from a global deforestation rate compared to a national deforestation rate. That is in order to make it more global and relative to also other countries. So the global deforestation rate, 0.6, and then in Guyana, somewhere between 0.1 and 0.3 are the estimates. So that would be then, if you compare those two together, we have put then, we have agreed that we put 0.45. Then, if you read in the agreement with Norway, since there is so much uncertainty on what the actual deforestation level is, I can't remember the exact formulation now, but what is in the agreement now is that Norway will not, before we know these numbers and before we have an MRV system in place and so on, Norway will not compensate for increased deforestation in that. So assuming that it is 0.3 now, Norway will compensate up to 0.3, but the methodology says that it is 0.45, but due to all the uncertainty regarding data and so on, and because there is the MRV system is still still starting to be built. That is some interim mechanism. I can also add regarding Guyana's role as a country with high forest cover and low deforestation. If you look at most countries in the world and their deforestation rates, you see that all countries, when they start developing a lot economically, the deforestation grows dramatically. That is the case with almost all countries. So then you have the risk of not allowing a country to evolve economically and socially, because you cannot allow the countries to emit from the forest sector. So instead, and then looking now, what do we want to do with the REDD mechanism? Well, we want to create incentives for countries in developing countries to reduce emissions from the forestry sector, from deforestation and forest degradation. So if then only countries like Brazil and Indonesia with high deforestation rates today are being given incentives, this would then create a very high pressure on those countries which currently have a low deforestation rate. So that if you look at, for example, Brazil with ambitious targets now, with 80% of reducing their deforestation by 80% by 2020, if they succeed, what about the neighboring countries, like, for example, Guyana, if they don't have incentives to keep their forests? So this is also a point, the risk for what is called in the jargon international leakage.
Okay. Person in the middle at the back. Sorry, with a beige scarf.
My name is Jutta Kuhl from Foreign Environmental and Social Justice Campaign Group. I had a comment to Duncan which I will keep until later, and restrict myself to a question to the President. In with initiatives like REDD and the low carbon development strategy, there's always those who win and those who lose. And I found that rather than looking at indicators, a fairly good measure for judging who will win and who will lose is listening to those in power and listening to what they say and maybe also to what they don't say. And I must say my concerns remain that those who will be losing are those who've been lost or have been losing for way too long. Because I haven't heard you say very clearly what will happen to the outstanding land claims. Claims that have been outstanding for about 40 years. And those people do not have a choice to opt in or out of your strategy. So if you could clarify what the process will be to address those outstanding claims and give an indication of the timeline maybe. And then secondly also, what will be the process for the revenue that is attributed to the lands that are still, where the ownership is unclear? Will that money be put into a trust fund? So it will be, there will not be further difficulties later on once those outstanding land claims are resolved. The second concern, or the second aspect where
I think that's two questions already.
The other thing I didn't hear is the shift in cultivation. Big concern for everybody in those areas. And I didn't hear reassurance that they will not be losing their livelihood. Thank you.
Yvonne has asked to speak, and then I will speak.
I would like to respond a little on the outstanding land claim. Now, to be specific, maybe that's where your question is coming from. There are several villages in the Upper Mazaruni who has a case in court presently. Through the National Tushaus Council, which is made up of all the Tushaus throughout the length and breadth of Guyana, we are trying to address those issues. We're talking to the Tushaus of that region, the 7 Tushaus, and let us find a common ground. The case has been in court for the past 11 years and over. It's not getting anywhere. We don't have anything to force the court or whatever. But what we have, we can talk. Let's negotiate. Let's talk about it. Those are the only villages who have a big issue with lands. As I said before, we have other issues, villages who do not have their title yet. And as I said, there are procedures set out in the Amerindian Act. What are the things we have to do? Those villages, they know what they have to do. It is there in the Act. Demarcation of boundaries. That also is set out in the law. 60 of our villages have already been demarcated. So there are so many things that we can do. And if I want to use the word, talk to government. But we can negotiate. And I would like to say the National Tushaus Council is the people, and we have the opportunity to meet with government, to bring our issues, and let's negotiate. So that's what I would like to say on the land claim.
I'm glad that you raised the issue of indigenous people, because it's something that we hold very dearly. And so maybe you gave me the opportunity to talk a bit about what has happened so far with indigenous people, their rights, and how integrated they are in the society and in our government. Since we've assumed office,